Hello and welcome to our training tutorial on the Accounts Payable Supplier Invoice Upload Portal and Dashboard. This form and dashboard allow for more visibility on your invoices as you upload them into the system and can track them along the way into the upload into Oracle. To start the form, you will start by clicking on the Sign In button. That will take you to the multi-factor single sign-on. Log in as necessary. And the first page asks you a few things. The first is if you've already started the process, you can resume any of the previously started forms. As you can see on the screen, there are two that are potential to be resumed. If you want to begin a new form, we would go to the bottom and click the button that says Begin this form. Now on this first page of the upload portal form, the first thing to note is how you are submitting. Here at the top, it says submitter, individual, or department. You are able to submit on behalf of yourself for your department, or you can be part of a larger group, a departmental group or group that will then be visible to all within that group in our dashboard. This one I am going to be uploading for my department on my behalf. As you see, I have my Andrew ID here at the top. Now, the first step in submitting an invoice for a purchase order is to enter a valid purchase order number. So looking over all of the information, it talks about submitting the PO number and make sure that it is, valid. So I'm going to go to the bottom, click the field, and I'm going to type in a purchase order number. Once you type in a purchase order number, you can click the lookup button to the right, and this will validate if this is a valid purchase order that you can submit an invoice for. Now, this first one I typed in, it is called invalid. So I have a status here right below, invalid, and it explains that there is a close date on this purchase order of December 12th. You can do another number if you have a different purchase order. You can, of course, type something in again. I'm going to type another one in that is actually still going to be invalid. So I'm going to type another one in and click lookup. And this one just says invalid. It doesn't give me a close date. So if you are trying to proceed with an invalid status, if you click the next button, it actually takes you back to the top of this first page. There's a big red box that says, check the required details are completed, jump to the first error, and you can click that button and it will take you down, of course, to the purchase order number field. So this one tells me that it's not found or it's not approved in Oracle. So this one would not be ready for me to send in an invoice for. So what I will do is I will type in a different one that is valid. So let me type in a different number. So if I type in this number 493623, I'm going to click lookup, and I have a valid status. Once we have the valid status, we're ready to move to the next page. So I'm going to click the next button at the bottom right, and this will take me to the page of questions and the page to upload the document. So as I scroll down, the first question asks if this purchase order invoice, if this is related to an SEI purchase. If you say yes, it will then ask for an IARS number. This is, of course, for SEI and their own approval process. So we would need that specific approval number from their system for the SEI system to then proceed. Now, of course, if it is not associated with SEI, you can click no, and you do not have any follow-ups. The next question, is this related to Rwanda? We have the same thing, yes or no, but this time if you click yes, it does not bring up a secondary form or a secondary field. The same thing with no, there's no secondary field. This question is for AP's internal routing. So they just want to know if this should go to the international information pieces. So if we click yes or no, it is not going to ask anything else. For this case, of course, I'm going to click on no. The next question, is this related to a subcontract or professional service agreement under a sponsored project account? If you click yes or no, there's no secondary items, but this is of course needed for SPA, and they will actually flag this question, and if you do answer yes, it will then take you to an error page. Now, of course, I'm going to say no, this is not related to that sponsored project account. And the next field is my invoice upload. At the bottom below the field, it does say upload one invoice only. You do not need to attach any supporting documentation. And it will say that the accepted types are Word documents, PDFs, and ODT files. So to upload a document, you can either drag and drop it right here, or you can click the button to upload and search for that file. I'm going to click it and upload a document. I'm going to select my file here for my purchase order 493623 and then click open. That puts a little thumbnail in of the file. Now, there is no preview here, but if I notice that the name is not correct, or I think the name's not correct, I could remove the file and upload an additional file if needed. But you're only able to upload one document there, one invoice. And then there are two more questions after that. The first question after it is there any necessary information that is not on the invoice? This one, if we do say yes, it will then bring up an additional information form. And this allows you to provide additional details to the AP team that they might need to know to process your invoice. I can type something pretty simple here for today. Please match invoice to line 2. Something simple. Now, of course, if the information is already on the invoice and you don't need to add any necessary extra information, then you can, of course, say no, and that won't bring up the additional information box. The next question after that is, should anyone else be made aware of this invoice upload to AP? This might be because the buyer is not the requester of the purchase, and you might want to add an additional person who was the requester to loop them in, or it could be somebody external. So if we say no, that's it, we're done. But if we say yes, it's going to ask another question. Do they have an Andrew ID? Essentially asking, are they part of CMU? And if we say yes, it will bring up a field for their Andrew ID. If I say no, then it's going to ask for a contact email, and you would type that contact email in, twice, once to add it, second time to confirm it. In this case, I will say yes, I'm going to use an Andrew ID. I'm going to type one in, and then I'm going to click lookup to make sure that that is a valid Andrew ID and that person is part of CMU. So you can see it worked. I have Amanda's email address there. And once I have everything filled out and I'm ready to go, I'm going to click the next button at the bottom. And this will take me to the review page. So here we have all of the details from our form. I have my purchase order number, then I have the answer to all of those questions, and I can see the name of the document that was uploaded. And I have the yeses, please match the invoice to line 2, my additional info that I typed, and then I even have the contact person's information at the bottom. Once everything looks good, we can go to the bottom right and click Submit Form. Once everything is submitted, you will get a confirmation screen like this that says, thanks for completing the form. Your invoice has been sent to accounts payable with the related notes, and you will receive an email confirmation of this upload. And if you have any additional invoices that you would like to submit, you can click the link here, and that will take you back to the beginning, and you can then submit another form. What I want to do now is I want to show you the confirmation email. Here is the confirmation email, and it will tell you, AP has received your invoice for this purchase order number. It will tell you the name of the form or the document that you've uploaded. And then it does give you some information about allowing 7 business days for this to be processed and uploaded into Oracle. And then you can track the progress of your invoice status in our dashboard, which is what we will show next. But before we go there, I'm going to talk about the 2 things at the bottom of the screen. So at the bottom, we have 2 attachments. One is the JADU form information, meaning this is electronically populated via the system that we just filled out, and it gives you the details such as, my name, my Andrew ID, the date that it was submitted, the purchase order, the attachment name, and then any additional info. It's just a kind of a simple form that details some of the basic information. The second attachment is actually the invoice that you uploaded. So this is going to be the document that you could then see and download, which will give you all of the information. Now this does have 2 pages on it, which is important in our next area. Now our next area is the dashboard. So I'm going to click the link here in the email, and this will take me to the dashboard, of course. And I will give you a heads up and just a reminder, I am using a testing environment, so please ignore the yellow band, or please also disregard anything that says old. This is just a testing environment that I can use to show in our training demonstrations. Now this gives the information. Invoices submitted through the accounts payable supplier invoice upload only portal, which is what we just filled out, will appear in this dashboard. But be aware, any invoices that are not submitted through the portal will not appear here. Invoices that are submitted via the CMU PO Inv email will not appear in this screen. Now it also mentions allow 7 business days for them to process, meaning to send into Oracle, to upload into Oracle. This is not 7 business days for payment to be generated. That is still at a net 30, 30 days past the date on the invoice. This is just to process your purchase order invoice. So what you're going to see when we go into these dashboard pieces, we will see a list of all of the purchase order and invoices starting at the top and working its way down to the oldest. So the top one is the newest, the bottom is the oldest, and what they will give you is a status. So that's the important piece to look at. So here I have a status that says initial review, purchase order number, and if I scroll over, I only see something that says file and download. Now this download, you can click on it and it will download a file, but it is not the entire documentation. This is just a preview of the document that was uploaded, and the preview is just the first page. So if your invoice is on the first page, then you'll be able to see it. But if your invoice is on a second or third page, then you won't see it in that download. It will just give you the first page. Now the status, as I mentioned, is the important piece to note. Right here it says initial review. That is our first step. Once you upload a document through the portal, it will then go to the status of initial review. That means it is waiting for accounts payable to review it and enter any more information. Down below, you can see I do have 2 of them that do have some more of this information with different statuses. One of them says Oracle Integration Review. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. And then you can see more info like the invoice number, the supplier name, things like the amounts, the dates, a little bit more info than we saw just in the initial review items. I also have one that is the same because it says it's a duplicate invoice. Now, if you're wondering what these statuses mean, if we look back to the top, the middle paragraph here says descriptions for each of the statuses can be found here. So what you can do is click the link and it takes you to another page that is a table of all of the different statuses that are available to us. So the first is that duplicate invoice. This is just The first is the initial review. This is the one where it's awaiting the review by AP staff. Everything gets that as soon as you upload it. That's the default value that we get before it's reviewed. Then we have things like duplicate invoices, or the review of the purchase order is needed, or it's in process. Now at the bottom, there's the one that I have. It's the Oracle integration review. Now that tells me that the invoice has been validated, but there's some sort of unexpected error that has occurred upon the import. So AP management is working to resolve that issue. And then the two at the bottom are kind of our final ones. Invoice processing is complete, meaning your invoice has been imported into Oracle and will be paid according to the established payment terms, typically net 30. And once it is in Oracle, then you can access it like you would any other invoice already in Oracle. The other one is an invoice invalid, essentially meaning the invoice submission has been removed from the workflow. It is identified as either a duplicate or AP was advised to remove it for some reason. And if you have questions, you can contact the help desk for answering that question. Now, for more information on these statuses, this is a documentation that AP has created, which shows those same statuses, but they color code them to show you at what point in the process would you expect to see specific statuses. So this has dark green, a little bit lighter, and so on. And these are all then matched to this process flowchart. So this invoice process status flowchart here says, this first stage is the start. And that's just the awaiting initial review by AP. That's that simple one, initial review. The second stage here, or stage one, this first one will just be the review or the start. We have things like supplier withholding tax review, or supplier site maintenance, or the duplicate, or just review of PO is needed. The next stage would be the processing, invoice in process, or AP management review. Then we have the next one, which would be our Oracle import stage. This is where it will tell you its importing is in progress into Oracle, or the integration review is needed, where that unexpected error might happen. And then the last is whether it is processing complete or invoice invalid. So these are what you might expect at different stages throughout that process. A couple pieces of information with the dashboard. If you have set up a grouper group for your department or division, anybody inside of that group will be able to see the uploaded dashboard invoices. They are not going to receive the email confirmations unless they've been added as the person on the follow-up, or they're the ones uploading. They will only see the dashboard status. And any outside suppliers or contractors, they will not have access to the dashboard either. You will need to log in with your Andrew ID, and only CMU employees will be able to access the dashboard. And another piece of information about the form itself. Once again, the form is just for CMU employees. If your suppliers want to submit the invoices themselves, or are going to submit the invoices themselves, they would do so in the same way they are doing currently, which is through the AP CMU PO INV email address. Now just remember, anything that is uploaded through that email address, that will not be visible in the dashboard. So only invoices that are uploaded through the portal will then be seen in the dashboard. Hopefully you've learned a little bit about how to upload your invoices and what the statuses mean in our dashboard. Thank you.